Hello and welcome to another AIC video. Today I'm doing a quick car review of this 2020 Mitsubishi Outlander. So I had a family thing happen and I had to travel about 1,000 miles one way to go deal with it. And so I decided to rent a car because the cars I have are all a little bit older, and I didn't want to put that many miles on them, and they don't get that great of gas mileage being a little bit older. So I thought I'd rent something, get a little bit better gas mileage, and it would help cover a big part of the cost of the car, plus the maintenance, putting 1,000 miles one way on a car. That's, oil changes, tire wear, brakes, all that jazz. So that's what I did, and this is what they gave me. Obviously, when you rent a car, we don't know exactly what you're getting. You're just getting whatever they have in stock. And so I didn't do a whole lot of research on this car because I picked it up, left within 30 minutes, and was back late last night, and it is now 7 o'clock in the morning. So, but I have to return it here in about an hour and a half or so. So I'm going to do this quick overview. I'll start off on the interior, going from the back to the front, and then we'll talk about powertrain. Again, this is just a quick, my review of it after spending, 20 hours in it. Of basically being in this car. So let's take a quick look. And it is disgusting because we rode through some absolutely horrendous weather. So one thing about this car I didn't realize when I was renting it is that it is a 3-row vehicle. Here's the third row. One thing that you'll note about the third row, this one does not have its headrest, this one does. This is where one of my children sat. We actually had this one folded so the luggage could fit here. Behind the third row, there's actually more room than I was expecting. So my last car that had a 3-row, that was a front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive car, was a Ford Flex. It was a bit longer than this and had a ton of room behind the third row. And so obviously that car was meant to have the third row used regularly. This car, I don't feel like the third row is meant to be used all that regularly. So you actually have to remove the headrests if you want to fold them down, and they store down here pretty easily. My Flex would have to fold down. The nice thing about that is if somebody wanted to sit here and you didn't want to use the headrest, it's not digging into somebody's back, and it also isn't blocking your visibility like this one did, or on my Flex. The headrests were up, it blocked your visibility pretty good. So in the back, you only have cup holders over there, not over here. There is a power outlet there, and I don't think there's any other power outlets back here for the kids. If like they have a game system or their phone or whatever, or tablet, there's no charging here in this row, other than that that's a cigarette lighter style outlet, 12 volt. And this is a power lift gate. So I don't know the Mitsubishi trims, but this seems a little bit more upscale. All right, going on to the middle row. So this row does slide backwards and forwards, which is kind of nice. Give you, if you have smaller kids here, a little bit bigger kids here, or your kids are more average size, you get a little bit more room, and the seats, and even all the way forward. This is my seating position. I'm about 5'10", 5'11", so there's still somewhat decent leg room behind me with the seat slid all the way forward, to give room in the back for the person back there. And then the seats do recline a little bit. Now, the one thing I don't like about these is the seat cushion bottom. See that? So they've where's the string? They unlatch and then they fold. How do I do that again? Anyways, they unlatch and then they fold up, and then this folds forward to give you access. And it just isn't very well secured, and it doesn't really matter. Like, it's not a safety problem or anything, but I'm not a big fan. And this side kind of does it too. Not as bad, but this one's like, it's only really secured like right here and not here at all. Kind of weird. There are 2 USB ports there. This is the only vents for the rear. There's nothing for that third row. So if you have a kid that gets car sick easily or whatever, there's no way for them to get some fresh air back there. So put your kid that gets car sick here in the middle. Now, as far as the front, this armrest is a little too high for me. That one's a little too low and not adjustable. These seats look like they should be fairly supportive, but they're kind of not. The bottom is very flat and it's very hard. The lumbar support is basically non-existent, and I couldn't really find a way to adjust it. Of course, now I'm looking here. Oh, well, I could have adjusted the lumbar support. That's the one thing with a rental, is you don't know what you're doing. One thing I was confused by on this car with the cruise control is it has this button here. That's like, not that button, sorry, this one. I don't know, it has all the sensors up on the windshield, and it didn't do any kind of like speed control. I'm used to having like that radar control on a little bit newer car, and it doesn't have it. I don't know what this button does. It acts like it should be adjusting your distance, your follow distance behind somebody else, but it doesn't. The screen there had Apple CarPlay, which is really nice for navigation, which I used quite a bit on this trip. And yeah, it does have all-wheel drive, which is really nice. I got into a terrible snowstorm and nearly died several times. I'm not even joking, I'm just laughing because otherwise I'd have to cry. Anyways, big pocket there for the center console, which was nice because we had stuff there. 2 cup holders there, big cup holders here on the door. Automatic windows, pretty okay. Nothing stellar. Get under the hood. All right, so there were a few different models or engines on this model that it could have had from factory, not from the rental. A 4-cylinder naturally aspirated 4-cylinder turbo and a V6. Obviously, we have the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, and just look at this engine bay. It is tiny. It is minuscule in here. It barely takes up any room at all. Don't know what the power outage is, or the power, but it is barely adequate is how I'd call it. It's pretty peppy from like that off the line up to about 40 miles an hour. But when you're going freeway speeds, you're not passing a truck. You just aren't. You got to be happy at the speed you can go until you hit a passing lane, because it runs out of steam pretty quick at highway speeds. So it is not fast. And the transmission, I am almost positive it's going to be a CVT on here, because it sure acts like a CVT, just at constant RPM for what you're doing. So if you're cruising, it's at 1. If you're trying to, driving down the highway, it's another RPM. And then if you're trying to accelerate, it gets closer to red line, but you never actually get to red line. And then the CVT does all the work for you. And as far as CVTs go, it's not bad. I don't think I have the same problem that other people have with CVTs. They don't bother me that much. Of course, I've owned one, or I've owned a couple now, and it's, you just get used to it. You do have to drive them a little bit different than you would with a, normal automatic transmission. You don't get that downshift. You kind of have to let it do its thing, so you have to do a little bit more planning than you would expect. Not a big deal, just something I had to get used to with owning one. So adequate, barely, on power. It's so tiny in here. It's so tiny. This is a natural aspirated 4-cylinder. Again, there was a 4-cylinder turbo and a V6 that were options on this car from factory. So obviously this one's just on a modern car, to be able to stick my hand in front and behind the engine is ridiculous. This would be so easy to maintain. This would be a joy to maintain, because you could almost stand in that engine bay. So anyways, it's okay. Not a great car, not a terrible car, just un car. It has all-wheel drive, like I said before, and I'm grateful for that, because we hit on the way back a whiteout snowstorm where for about 70 plus miles the highway was solid ice, and tons of cars slid off the road, and we were able to make it through. This car was definitely sideways a couple times. Semi trucks tried to run us off the road when they lost grip and were sliding towards us. This car definitely could stand better tires. Tires on this car would make a huge difference. But with all-wheel drive system, worked pretty well. Pretty happy with it. So anyways, again, this was just a quick overview of this car. it's not a car I'd buy. Spending the time I have with it, I don't like the way it looks. I think it's kind of ugly, and that is important to me. In the car I own, I want to actually like to look at it. It doesn't have enough power. I think if you had the 4-cylinder turbo, it would, or the V6. I think it'd have plenty. This just isn't enough power for this big of a vehicle. There's only 4 of us in this car. If I put my whole family of 7 in here, it would have been just a dog. You know, just not enough power for that, you know, for people and luggage and all that for a few days. So anyways, if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, leave those down in the description. I don't know if we'll be able to answer them because, again, I only had this car for a few days while I did a whirlwind trip to go to a funeral. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you have an amazing day.